Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for dropping by the art table today. Here we are with new branding for the channel and a new take on how we're going to do some presentation. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. I am kind of considering this as a model going forward. I find these videos a little easier to make than setting up the camera every time and trying to find something interesting to hold up for you. Anyways, today I want to talk a little bit about my approach to promoting myself going forward. My goal is to be something of a professional storyteller, or at least have that as major sideline in my life. And one of the people that I've seen be most successful at growing an audience basically from scratch as a both visual and verbal storyteller is George Alexopolous. You can see some of his art here on the screen. This actually doesn't have any text to it, but I think this is one of his best instances of visual storytelling in the last few weeks. So I thought I would share it with you while I talked a little bit about what I think of his approach, his techniques, what I really like, and what I hope to learn from this going forwards. Now right away it bears noting that I have reviewed George's work before. I did a review of his Mary Sue comic about a year ago, give or take. I'm going to link that down below if you're really interested in that. And I stand by most of what I said in those reviews. I'm not really here to do a recap of that project or what I thought of it. I should also note that I did back the second part of that story, I want to say 6-8 months ago. No, that's not right, because I believe the comic was supposed to arrive at the beginning of the year. Anyways, that project is outstanding and it is late. As you know, I am not a huge fan of late crowdfunders. I know that they happen and they're inevitable, but as you may recall from my discussion of the Red Rooster campaign some time ago, I particularly find them annoying when I learned that the person who is late because they got wrapped up in other projects. Now with the Brightwisers, they were almost 2.5 years late fulfilling that crowdfunder, and George is not that late on the Mary Sue crowdfunder. However, he has gone and done other projects. Am I happy about that? Not entirely. I understand why he would do it, just as I understand why the Brightwisers did what they did. But it is not my favorite thing to know that George has prioritized one set of customers over another. That is something that I hope to avoid doing as I work on my own storytelling, and that is not a thing I'm looking to endorse or promote or otherwise encourage by looking at George's work here. However, he has done a number of things that are really interesting to look at, and I think provide a lot of rules of thumb for the independent storyteller going forward. The first and most obvious is that George has a lot of social media engagement. Now, personally, I loathe social media. I'm not a fan of it at all, but we have to recognize that it's pretty much mandatory in the modern day and age, and George uses it quite well. He's not looking to pick fights. He's not looking to talk directly to people he doesn't already know in a professional capacity. And that's fine. Actually, that's how I intend to use social media as well. It's a great engagement tool. I like it. And here on YouTube, I will engage with the comments when you all comment, which is not that often, which, you know, that's up to you. I can't make you comment. And, you know, they're an interesting way to talk to people, but I used bulletin board systems back in the day, and they definitely have their limitations. I don't think the comments are really any better. And on the whole, I think George's approach of just engaging directly with people he knows to a certain degree, or occasionally replying to a comment, is wise. It keeps him from getting too tied up in any kind of drama on social media, and it also keeps him from developing this weird sort of grudge match or blood sports that you will see between some of the bigger social media personalities that really should have better things to do with their time. Now, George has had some feuds in the past. He seems to have largely moved past them, which I like to see. It makes me feel a lot better about following him, and it's why I still follow him and have unfollowed some of the other creators that I used to follow on Twitter, whose timelines just got to be too much. I really didn't care about how they were feuding with another creator that day, and my timeline is better off without that there. So the first lesson that George brings, if you find yourself getting tied up in your social media, not as a promotion tool, but rather as a way to sink your time when you should be doing other things, maybe back off it for a little while and reevaluate how you're using it. Props to George on that. Social media is really addictive. I've struggled with that a little bit myself, and it's good to be able to recognize when it's taking over your life, take a step back and say, all right, let's use this in a different way. The other thing is he is really using it as a way to put out content, not as blurbs, not ads, not some kind of teaser or something like that. What we're looking at here is a complete comic with a complete story, with a very clear-cut message that he put out for his audience. And he puts out one of these every couple of days. Maybe he puts out one every day and I just miss them. But I think they're every couple of days. These are all political cartoons, of course, and most of them are some kind of commentary on a social issue or a political situation. That's fine. I have no problem with that mixed in with some of his bigger creative endeavors. Those are really fascinating, both as an artist and as a watcher of society. And admittedly, George has a pretty clear-cut point of view, which I mostly agree with. If you don't, you may find his comics kind of abrasive, which he has a lot of commenters that say that quite clearly. There's nothing wrong with that either. Having a strong tone and message in your social media presence is part of what collects people around you and helps you to present yourself to the public in a way they can quickly digest and decide whether they want to follow you or not. So what we get here is we get a taste of George's storytelling approach. It's very bright most of the time, sometimes almost garish. You don't really get a real sense of the breadth of expression George can give his characters. We have some very happy characters here. We have some very angry characters. And we get that taste for expression. Some of his more macabre illustrations give you a sense of how he can display horror or sadness or things like that. But this image is a quick primer. So that's another great thing he does. He gives you a great taste while giving you something complete, something you can really enjoy and kind of sink your teeth into, and you will probably think about for at least the rest of the day. The third thing that I have really taken away from George is that he is doing a whole bunch of different things. He's not just here on Twitter, he's on Locals, he's on YouTube, he's on Patreon, he has an Etsy store which he uses to sell prints. He's in front of people every which way, and that's something I need to work on as well. I'm going to be starting putting out some art again on Twitter and on other social media that I hope people will connect with again. But I really, and of course I am trying to do 3 videos a week now here on YouTube, 2 here and 1 over on my Horizon Talker channel. But having a steady drip of content is a big, important part of what keeps that engagement engine churning. And while George does have big story projects like Mary Sue, like his Dark Dreams, I believe it's called. I would have to look that up, and I'm not going to stop right now. But he has these big storytelling projects, which he kind of tempts you into engaging with these short, really digestible comics with his snippets of story that he gives you, from which you can tell he really has a command of storytelling and bringing you a very satisfying experience. It's much harder to create a self-contained story in 3 to 5 images than in a long-running format. So by giving you this really condensed story, he convinces you that he can be trusted to bring you a great, strong story on a larger scale. Not every creator can do that, of course. It is a skill set which requires a lot of practice. However, if you're good at one, you can learn the other skills you need to become good at the other. And George creates the promise of that in these little comics, which then draw you into the allure of the bigger stories. Now, admittedly, I would like to get Mary Sue, that complete story that I have already paid for, and I know that he has chops, and I see it in the condensed stories. I saw it in the first part of Mary Sue, so I am really excited to see that. And I want to try and do that kind of thing as well. So, yeah, this is what I'm thinking about as I'm trying to build up my audience, and it's what I would encourage other people who are trying to do the same to think about. Yes, have your big projects, but think of small things you can do to really tempt people in and show them on a regular basis in a lot of different places. And unfortunately, with the way the attention economy works these days, you are going to have to really attempt to have something new on a regular basis. Otherwise, people are going to move on and move elsewhere because there is stuff everywhere and your stuff has to be constantly appearing before them if they're to think about it. Now, George only does one of these every couple of days, as I said, but he does retweet them, he does repackage them into mega threads, stuff like that, all of which are clever ways to think of building engagement. So if you're trying to do that, I highly suggest giving gprime85 a follow on Twitter right after you go back to draw and follow me. Anyways, let me know what you think about George. If you have a favorite comic, tell me what that is. Down in the comments below, there's a like button and subscribe button down there you can use as you see fit, and I will talk to you later.